Imagine this. Every time you walk from your bedroom to your kitchen, you're not just taking a few steps. You're reenacting a journey shaped by millions of years of evolutionary genius. Now picture this. In just a few years, you could be hurtling through a vacuum tube at over 600 miles per hour, leaving today's fastest trains in the dust. The evolution of human transportation isn't merely about moving from point A to B. It's the epic tale of who we are, a species obsessed with speed, distance, and the audacity to reshape the very world beneath our feet. Every single day, you participate in one of the most remarkable achievements in human history without even thinking about it. Whether you're walking to the corner store, driving to work, or boarding a plane to visit family, you're engaging with transportation systems that represent thousands of years of human ingenuity, failure, breakthrough, and revolution. But here's what will blow your mind. We're currently living through the most dramatic transformation in transportation since the invention of the wheel itself. Think about this for a moment. Your great-great-grandmother might have lived her entire life within a 20-mile radius of where she was born. Today, you can have breakfast in New York and dinner in London. That's not just progress, that's a complete reorganization of human existence. And we're just getting started. The story begins with the most sophisticated transportation system ever created, one that took millions of years to perfect, and one that you carry with you everywhere you go: your feet. Human bipedalism isn't just walking upright, it's a masterpiece of biological engineering that gave our species the ability to travel efficiently across vast distances while keeping our hands free for tools, weapons, and eventually, steering wheels. But our ancestors weren't content with the limitations of their own 2 feet. Archaeological evidence suggests that humans began domesticating animals for transportation purposes over 6,000 years ago. The horse, in particular, didn't just change how we moved, it changed how we thought about distance itself. Suddenly, a day's journey expanded from 20 miles to 60 miles. Trade routes that once took months could be completed in weeks. Civilizations that were once isolated could now interact, share knowledge, and, unfortunately, wage war more efficiently. The domestication of animals for transportation created the first transportation revolution, but it also created the first transportation inequality. Those who had access to horses, camels, or oxen could travel faster, trade more efficiently, and accumulate wealth more quickly than those who didn't. This pattern of transportation technology creating social and economic divides would repeat itself throughout history, and we're still dealing with its consequences today. But the real game changer wasn't an animal at all. It was a simple circular object that would become the foundation of virtually every transportation system that followed. The wheel, invented around 3500 BCE in Mesopotamia, wasn't initially created for transportation. The earliest wheels were potter's wheels, used for creating pottery. It took humans several hundred more years to figure out that you could attach wheels to a platform and create a cart. The wheel changed everything because it solved the fundamental problem of friction. Instead of dragging heavy objects across the ground, you could now roll them. This single innovation increased the amount of weight that could be transported by a factor of 10. Trade exploded. Cities grew larger because food could be transported more efficiently. Armies could move heavier equipment across longer distances. The wheel didn't just change transportation, it changed civilization. But wheels needed something to roll on, and this led to humanity's first major infrastructure project: roads. The Romans understood this better than anyone. They built over 250,000 miles of roads throughout their empire, creating a transportation network that wouldn't be matched in efficiency for over 1,000 years. Roman roads were marvels of engineering, built to last centuries, and designed to move armies and goods quickly across vast distances. The Roman road system reveals something crucial about transportation. It's not just about the vehicles, it's about the infrastructure. You can have the most advanced transportation technology in the world, but without the proper infrastructure to support it, it's useless. This principle would become even more important as transportation technology advanced. The collapse of the Roman Empire led to what historians call the Dark Ages, but it might be more accurate to call it the Transportation Dark Ages. Roads fell into disrepair, trade routes became dangerous. The sophisticated transportation networks that had connected Europe, Asia, and Africa began to fragment. For nearly 1,000 years, transportation technology stagnated. But then something extraordinary happened. The Renaissance wasn't just a rebirth of art and learning, it was a rebirth of transportation innovation. The compass, improved shipbuilding techniques, and better understanding of wind patterns led to the age of exploration. Ships became larger, faster, and more seaworthy. Humans began to think of the ocean not as a barrier, but as a highway. The development of ocean-going vessels represents one of the most underappreciated achievements in transportation history. Think about the audacity required to build a wooden ship and sail it into the open ocean, with nothing but the stars and a compass for guidance. These early explorers weren't just brave, they were transportation pioneers who expanded humanity's reach from a few continents to the entire globe. But ocean travel had limitations. It was slow, dangerous, and completely dependent on weather conditions. What humanity needed was a transportation system that could provide the reliability of roads with the power and speed that only came from harnessing natural forces. The answer came from an unlikely source: boiling water. The first steam-powered vehicles were clunky, inefficient, and often dangerous. Early steam cars required a team of people to operate them and frequently broke down or exploded. But the principle was sound, and engineers quickly began improving the technology. The breakthrough came when someone realized that steam-powered vehicles would work much better if they ran on predetermined tracks, rather than trying to navigate roads. The steam engine, perfected by James Watt in the 1760s, didn't just power the Industrial Revolution, it powered the transportation revolution. Steam could be used to propel ships faster and more reliably than wind. It could power vehicles that didn't depend on animals or human muscle. For the first time in human history, we had a transportation system that was faster, more powerful, and more reliable than anything nature had provided. The railroad changed everything. The first passenger railway, the Liverpool and Manchester Railway, opened in 1830 and immediately demonstrated the revolutionary potential of rail travel. Trips that once took days could now be completed in hours. The railroad didn't just move people and goods faster, it synchronized time itself. Before railroads, every town kept its own local time. Railroad schedules forced the standardization of time zones, literally changing how humanity measured and organized time. But the real impact of railroads was economic and social. Railroads made it possible to transport raw materials and finished goods across vast distances quickly and cheaply. This created larger markets, more specialization, and the foundation of the modern global economy. Railroads also made it possible for people to live in one place and work in another, creating the first commuter culture and changing the fundamental relationship between home and work. The railroad era lasted for about a century and created some of the most spectacular engineering achievements in human history. The Transcontinental Railroad connected the American East and West coasts for the first time. The Orient Express connected Western Europe to the Ottoman Empire. The Trans-Siberian Railway connected Moscow to the Pacific Ocean across 6,000 miles of Russian wilderness. But by the early 1900s, the limitations of rail travel were becoming apparent. Railroads were expensive to build, inflexible once constructed, and couldn't reach every destination. What people really wanted was the freedom to travel wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted, without depending on predetermined schedules or routes. The answer came in the form of the internal combustion engine. Unlike steam engines, internal combustion engines were small, lightweight, and didn't require enormous amounts of water and fuel. They could be built into vehicles that individuals could own and operate. The automobile promised to democratize transportation in a way that had never been possible before. The early automobile industry was chaotic, with hundreds of companies producing vehicles that were expensive, unreliable, and difficult to operate. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: assembly line manufacturing. Henry Ford didn't invent the automobile, but he figured out how to mass-produce them cheaply and efficiently. The Model T, introduced in 1908, was the first car that ordinary middle-class families could afford. The automobile didn't just change transportation, it changed society. Cars enabled the development of suburbs, allowing people to live miles away from where they worked. They changed courtship patterns, giving young people unprecedented freedom to meet and socialize away from parental supervision. They created entirely new industries: gas stations, auto repair shops, car dealerships, and eventually, drive-through restaurants and movie theaters. But cars also created new problems. They required enormous amounts of infrastructure in the form of roads, bridges, and parking facilities. They created traffic congestion in cities, they caused accidents that killed thousands of people every year, and they produced pollution that began to affect air quality in major cities. The automobile revolution was still underway when humanity achieved something that had been dreamed about for thousands of years: flight. The Wright brothers' first powered flight in 1903 lasted only 12 seconds and covered 120 feet, but it proved that human flight was possible. Within a few decades, aircraft were carrying passengers across oceans and continents. Aviation development was accelerated by 2 world wars, which created enormous incentives for faster, more reliable, and more capable aircraft. By the 1950s, commercial aviation was beginning to compete with railroads and ships for long-distance travel. The introduction of jet engines made flight faster and more efficient, and the development of larger aircraft made it more economical. The jet age transformed global travel and trade. Cities that had once been days or weeks apart were now only hours apart. International business became practical for the first time. Tourism exploded as ordinary people could afford to travel to distant destinations. Aviation didn't just shrink the world, it created a global culture and economy. But aviation also revealed the environmental costs of rapid transportation. Jet engines consume enormous amounts of fuel and produce significant amounts of carbon dioxide and other pollutants. As aviation has grown, so has concern about its environmental impact. This has led to research into more efficient engines, alternative fuels, and even electric aircraft. While aviation was conquering the skies, engineers were working on another revolutionary transportation technology: space travel. The first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, was launched in 1957, followed by the first human spaceflight in 1961. The Apollo moon landings in the 1960s and 1970s demonstrated that humans could travel beyond Earth itself. Space travel hasn't yet become a practical transportation system for ordinary people, but it's beginning to change. Private companies are developing spacecraft that could make space travel more affordable and accessible. There's serious discussion about using space travel for ultra-fast transportation between distant points on Earth, potentially reducing flight times from hours to minutes. Today, we're experiencing another transportation revolution that might be even more significant than the invention of the automobile. Electric vehicles are becoming practical alternatives to gasoline-powered cars. Autonomous vehicles are being tested on roads around the world. High-speed rail systems are being built that can travel at speeds of over 200 miles per hour. But the most exciting development might be the Hyperloop, a proposed transportation system that would use magnetic levitation to propel passenger pods through low-pressure tubes at speeds of up to 700 miles per hour. The Hyperloop would combine the speed of aviation with the convenience and efficiency of rail travel, potentially revolutionizing long-distance transportation. The Hyperloop represents something remarkable about human nature. We're never satisfied with the status quo. Even though we've already achieved transportation capabilities that would have seemed miraculous to our ancestors, we're still pushing forward, still trying to go faster, more efficiently, and more sustainably. Electric vehicles address the environmental concerns created by gasoline-powered cars. They're quieter, more efficient, and produce zero local emissions. As battery technology improves and charging infrastructure expands, electric vehicles are becoming practical for more people and more applications. Autonomous vehicles promise to make transportation safer and more efficient. Human error causes over 90% of traffic accidents. Autonomous vehicles could potentially eliminate most traffic accidents while also reducing traffic congestion by optimizing routes and driving patterns. High-speed rail represents a renaissance of railroad technology. Modern high-speed trains can travel at speeds that rival aviation for medium-distance trips while producing much less pollution and requiring less infrastructure than highways or airports. Urban transportation is also being revolutionized. Bike-sharing programs, electric scooters, and ride-sharing services are changing how people move around cities. These systems are more flexible than traditional public transportation and more efficient than private car ownership for many urban residents. The future of transportation will likely be multimodal, combining different transportation systems optimized for different types of trips. Short trips might be made on foot, by bicycle, or by electric scooter. Medium trips might use autonomous vehicles or high-speed rail. Long trips might use Hyperloop or next-generation aviation. But technology is only part of the story. The future of transportation will also be shaped by environmental concerns, economic factors, and social priorities. Climate change is creating pressure to develop transportation systems that produce fewer greenhouse gas emissions. Urbanization is creating demand for more efficient ways to move large numbers of people in dense areas. Aging populations in developed countries are creating demand for transportation systems that are accessible to people with mobility limitations. The story of transportation is ultimately the story of human ambition. Every transportation innovation has been driven by the desire to go faster, farther, and more efficiently than was previously possible. But each innovation has also created new challenges and new opportunities. The wheel made it possible to transport heavier loads but required the development of roads. Steam engines made it possible to travel faster but required the development of railroad infrastructure. Automobiles provided individual mobility but created traffic congestion and pollution. Aviation made global travel practical but consumes enormous amounts of energy. Today's transportation innovations are trying to address the problems created by previous innovations while also pushing forward into new possibilities. Electric vehicles address the pollution created by gasoline engines. Autonomous vehicles address the safety problems created by human drivers. Hyperloop addresses the speed limitations of current ground transportation. But every solution creates new challenges. Electric vehicles require new electrical infrastructure and battery disposal systems. Autonomous vehicles require new legal frameworks and cybersecurity measures. Hyperloop requires entirely new infrastructure and safety systems. The epic journey of transportation from foot to Hyperloop reveals something profound about human nature. We are a species that is never satisfied with limitations. We took a biological transportation system that had evolved over millions of years and immediately began trying to improve it. We've spent thousands of years developing increasingly sophisticated ways to move people and goods across the Earth's surface, through the air, and even into space. But we're not done yet. The next chapter in the transportation story is just beginning. Within your lifetime, you might travel in autonomous vehicles that communicate with each other to optimize traffic flow. You might take Hyperloop trips that get you from New York to Los Angeles in 3 hours. You might even take commercial space flights that get you from New York to Tokyo in 30 minutes. The future of transportation will be shaped by the same forces that have always driven transportation innovation. The human desire to go faster, farther, and more efficiently than ever before. But it will also be shaped by new priorities: sustainability, safety, and accessibility. The challenge is to continue pushing the boundaries of what's possible, while also addressing the problems created by previous innovations. The epic journey of transportation continues, and you're not just a passenger on this journey, you're a participant in it. Every time you choose how to travel, you're voting for the future of transportation. Every time you support new transportation technologies, you're helping to shape that future. The story of transportation is the story of human civilization, and the next chapter is being written right now. If you enjoyed this journey through the epic history of transportation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel grow and keeps you in the loop for more stories just like this. We've got plenty more coming soon, from the rise of ancient empires to the weirdest forgotten inventions. Check out the playlist for more videos, or stick around. History's just getting started. And if you want even more historical deep dives, behind-the-scenes extras, and exclusive content, subscribe to our newsletter at www.historygonebananas.com. No spam, just bananas history.